What if the peace you have been searching for is not waiting somewhere in the future? What if it is not hiding behind the next achievement, the next resolved problem, the next person who finally understands you, or the next chapter in which everything unfolds according to your plans? What if peace has been with you all along, quietly waiting beneath everything you have been trying so hard to control? There comes a moment in many lives when the weight becomes impossible to ignore. You may still be fulfilling your responsibilities. You may still be answering messages, caring for others, making plans, and doing what the world expects of you. From the outside, your life may even appear orderly. Yet inside, you feel tired. Not only physically tired, but tired of constantly anticipating what could go wrong, tired of replaying conversations that have already ended, tired of managing everyone's expectations, tired of carrying old disappointments into new mornings, tired of believing that one more answer, one more accomplishment, or one more act of approval from someone else will finally allow you to rest. The mind has a way of postponing peace. It says you can be peaceful after the situation changes, after the relationship improves, after you understand why something happened, after the uncertainty passes, after you have done enough to feel secure. But have you noticed that when one problem disappears, the mind often finds another? The circumstances may change, yet the inner tension remains, because the tension was never created entirely by the circumstances. Much of it was created by your belief that life had to become different before you could feel whole. This does not mean your challenges are imaginary. It does not mean pain is not real or that difficult circumstances should be ignored. It means that beneath every circumstance, there is a deeper place within you that remains untouched by the movement of the world. There is an awareness within you that notices your thoughts without being limited by them. It observes fear without becoming fear. It allows sadness to be present without turning sadness into your identity. It remains quietly connected to something greater, even when the surface of life feels uncertain. You may call this awareness your higher self, your spirit, your divine nature, or the presence of God within you. The name matters less than the experience. It is the place where you remember that you are not separate from the intelligence that moves the planets, opens the flowers, heals the body, and guides every river toward the sea. You are an expression of that same source. The ego, however, does not experience life this way. The ego sees separation everywhere. It believes it must struggle, compete, defend, impress, predict, and control in order to survive. It tells you that your worth depends upon what you accomplish, how others perceive you, and whether life follows the picture you have created in your mind. This is why life becomes so complicated. You are not only living the moment in front of you, you are also carrying the mind's judgments about the moment, its memories of similar moments, its fear of future moments, and its endless demand that reality should be something other than what it is. Imagine walking along a peaceful river while holding 12 heavy stones. Perhaps one stone is resentment. One is the need for approval. One is regret. Another is comparison. Another is the belief that you must solve everyone's problems. You have carried these stones for so long that you have begun to think they are part of you. But the river never asked you to carry them. Life did not ask you to turn every experience into a burden. Some things were meant to be felt. Some were meant to teach you. Some were meant to awaken you. But not everything that enters your life is meant to remain in your heart forever. Simplifying your life is not only about removing possessions, clearing your schedule, or moving to a quieter place. You can own very little and still be crowded by fear. You can cancel every appointment and remain imprisoned by resentment. You can sit in complete silence while the mind continues arguing with the past. True simplicity begins within. It begins when you become willing to release what blocks your awareness of the peace that is already present. The first way to simplify your life is to recognize the voice that is always telling you something is missing. This voice may be so familiar that you no longer notice it. It says you are not doing enough. You are not successful enough. You are not appreciated enough. Your life is not moving quickly enough. Even in a beautiful moment, it whispers that the moment could be better. You may complete something meaningful and immediately think about what remains undone. You may spend time with someone you love while part of your attention wonders whether you should be somewhere else. You may receive kindness and question whether it will last. The ego lives through dissatisfaction because dissatisfaction keeps it searching. It convinces you that fulfillment exists somewhere outside the present moment. As long as you believe this, you will continue chasing experiences without fully receiving them. You do not need to fight this voice. Fighting it gives it more importance. You only need to recognize it. When the mind says, "This is not enough," pause and notice what is happening. Silently acknowledge, there is the thought that this moment should be different. That small act of awareness creates space. You are no longer only the thought, you are the awareness observing the thought. In that space, ask yourself a different question. What is already here that I have not allowed myself to receive? Perhaps there is a breath moving through your body. Perhaps there is warmth from the sun, a quiet room, a familiar voice, or the simple miracle of being alive for another day. The ego searches for what is absent. Your higher self recognizes what is present. Gratitude does not mean pretending that everything is pleasant. It means refusing to let what is missing erase what has already been given. When you stop requiring the present moment to complete you, you begin to discover that your deepest self was never incomplete. The second way to simplify your life is to stop measuring your path against the path of another person. Comparison is one of the ego's most persuasive distractions. It invites you to look away from your own life and evaluate your worth through someone else's appearance, achievements, relationships, or timing. Someone reaches a milestone before you, and you wonder whether you are behind. Someone appears confident, and you assume they understand life better than you do. Someone seems to have found their purpose, and you begin judging the season in which your own direction is still unclear. But no two souls have come here to live the same journey. A tree does not look across the field and resent another tree for blossoming first. It remains rooted where it has been planted. It receives rain when rain comes and sunlight when sunlight appears. During winter, it does not declare itself a failure. It trusts the invisible work occurring beneath the soil. There are seasons in your life when growth is visible. There are also seasons when the most important changes are taking place where no one can see them. The ego values only visible movement. It wants proof, recognition, and immediate results. But source is not limited by the ego's timetable. Some of your deepest roots may be growing during the very period you are tempted to call a delay. Comparison makes life complicated because it gives you two journeys to carry, your own and the imagined version of someone else's. Release the journey that does not belong to you. When comparison appears, return gently to your own center and ask, what is life inviting me to learn, express, or release today? Not what someone else should be doing, not where you should have arrived by now, only what this moment is asking of you. Your path becomes peaceful when you stop demanding that it resemble anyone else's. The third way to simplify your life is to loosen your need to control every outcome. The desire for control is often an attempt to avoid pain. You try to anticipate what people will say, how events will unfold, and what could go wrong. You mentally rehearse conversations. You prepare defenses for situations that have not occurred. You attach yourself to one particular result because you believe you cannot be peaceful unless life agrees with your plan. Yet, the more tightly you hold an outcome, the more frightened you become of anything that threatens it. There is wisdom in preparation. There is beauty in choosing a direction and acting responsibly. But preparation becomes suffering when you believe every detail must be controlled before you are permitted to feel safe. Think about how much of life is already occurring without your supervision. You did not command your heart to continue beating while you slept. You do not tell your body how to repair a wound. You do not instruct the seed when to open beneath the earth. You do not remind the sun to rise. There is an intelligence moving through life that does not depend on the mind's constant management. You belong to that intelligence. Surrender does not mean becoming passive or careless. It means releasing the belief that your happiness depends upon forcing life into one predetermined shape. You set an intention. You take the next honest and loving step. Then you allow life to respond. Sometimes a closed door is not rejection, it is redirection. Sometimes the delay is not punishment, it is protection or preparation. Sometimes what you are trying to force has not arrived because something within you is still becoming ready to receive it wisely. You cannot always see the whole design from the small place where you are standing. Trust does not require you to know what will happen. It asks only that you stop assuming that uncertainty is your enemy. The fourth way to simplify your life is to stop trying to manage everyone's opinion of you. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy creating different versions of themselves for different audiences. You may say yes when your heart is quietly saying no. You may explain your choices long after an explanation is necessary. You may soften your truth so that another person will not be uncomfortable. You may take responsibility for emotions that were never yours to control. This can look like kindness from the outside, but beneath it there is often fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disappointing someone, fear of being misunderstood, fear that love will be withdrawn when you stop performing the role another person expects you to play. But love does not require you to disappear. You can care about someone's feelings without making those feelings the authority over your life. You can be compassionate and still decline what is not right for you. You can allow another person to misunderstand you without turning their misunderstanding into evidence that you have betrayed yourself. There is a story of a traveler who entered a village carrying a lantern. Each person he met told him how the lantern should be held. One said it was too high, another said it was too low. One insisted the flame was too bright, while another complained that it was too dim. The traveler spent so much time adjusting the lantern for everyone else that he eventually could no longer see the road in front of him. How often do you dim your inner light while trying to make others comfortable? Authenticity may feel uncomfortable at first, especially when you have spent years shaping yourself around approval. But discomfort does not always mean you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it is simply the sensation of an old pattern losing its power. A peaceful life is one in which you no longer need to divide yourself into a dozen identities. You begin living from one honest center. The fifth way to simplify your life is to stop carrying responsibilities that belong to someone else's journey. You may be deeply sensitive to the struggles of those around you. When someone you love is hurting, you want to remove their pain. When they make choices that may lead to suffering, you search for the words that will change them. When conflict enters a relationship, you may assume that it is your responsibility to restore harmony, even when the other person refuses to participate honestly. Compassion is sacred, but compassion is not the same as control. You can walk beside another person without trying to walk their path for them. You can offer guidance without demanding that it be followed. You can love someone without making their healing a requirement for your peace. Every soul has its own lessons, its own timing, and its own relationship with Source. There are moments when love asks you to speak. There are moments when love asks you to listen. There are moments when love asks you to extend your hand, and there are moments when love asks you to release your grip. Consider the difference between presence and anxiety. Presence says, I am here with you. Anxiety says, I must control what happens to you so that I can feel safe. One is love, the other is fear wearing the appearance of responsibility. You do not become uncaring when you stop trying to rescue everyone. You may become more loving because you begin seeing others as capable souls rather than fragile people whose lives depend entirely upon you. Offer your presence. Offer your honesty. Offer help when it is welcomed and appropriate. Then release the outcome. The sixth way to simplify your life is to question the urgency created by the mind. The ego wants immediate answers. It treats every uncertainty as an emergency and every uncomfortable emotion as a problem that must be solved at once. A message arrives, and you feel pressure to respond before understanding what you truly feel. A decision appears, and the mind insists that you must immediately identify the perfect choice. A possibility enters your awareness, and within moments, you have imagined an entire future built around it. Your body may be sitting safely in a quiet room while your mind is living through 20 situations that do not exist. You do not need to solve your entire life today. You only need to meet the moment that is actually here. When the mind begins rushing, pause. Feel your feet against the ground. Notice your breath without attempting to change it. Listen to the sounds around you. Allow the physical reality of the present to become more convincing than the story of the future. Then ask, what is the next peaceful step? Not the final step, not the perfect step, only the next one. Wisdom rarely shouts. Panic shouts. Fear demands. Inner guidance often arrives as a quieter recognition that something is honest, necessary, or aligned. The ego pulls you backward through regret and forward through fear because it cannot remain powerful in the present moment. The present contains no imaginary future to control and no past event to rewrite. It contains only life as it is. Peace can only be experienced now. Love can only be expressed now. Forgiveness can only begin now. Your next conscious choice can only be made now. The seventh way to simplify your life is to forgive what you can no longer change. Some experiences may have ended years ago, yet they continue living in your body and mind. Perhaps someone betrayed you. Perhaps words were spoken that changed the way you saw yourself. Perhaps a relationship ended without the understanding or apology you hoped to receive. Perhaps you still regret a time when you acted from fear rather than from the person you now know yourself to be. The event is over, but each time the mind recreates it, the pain becomes present again. The ego often believes resentment is protection. It says that if you release your anger, you are saying the wound did not matter. It tells you that forgiveness allows the other person to escape accountability. But forgiveness does not require you to deny what happened. It does not require you to restore a harmful relationship, abandon wise boundaries, or pretend that unacceptable behavior was acceptable. Forgiveness means you no longer allow an event from yesterday to decide the quality of your consciousness today. You forgive because you deserve freedom. You release the demand that the past should have happened differently. You accept that it occurred, that it affected you, and that you are no longer willing to make the wound the center of your identity. Forgiveness may not happen in one dramatic moment. Some memories must be released many times. When the pain returns, do not judge yourself. Place it down again. Say quietly, "This happened, but I will not carry it in the same way today." You do not need another person's apology to begin healing. The apology may never come. The explanation may never satisfy you. The justice you hope for may not appear in the form you expected. But your peace does not have to remain imprisoned while you wait. The eighth way to simplify your life is to release the identity you built during your most painful season. Pain often changes the way you describe yourself. You may become the person who was abandoned, the one who was betrayed, the one who had to be strong, the one whose needs were ignored, the one who never received enough love. These experiences deserve compassion. They are part of your story, but they are not the totality of who you are. The ego creates identities because identities provide certainty. Even a painful identity can feel familiar and therefore safe. When you know yourself as the wounded one, you know what to expect. You know which memories to revisit, which possibilities to fear, and which role to play. But the true self is larger than every role. You are not only what happened to you, you are also the awareness that lived through it. You are the wisdom that has grown from it. You are the presence capable of looking at the old wound from a new level of consciousness. The scar may remain, but the scar does not need to become the permanent address of your spirit. Imagine a tree after a powerful storm. Some branches may be gone. Its bark may carry visible marks, yet life continues moving within it. New leaves appear, new branches reach toward the sky. The tree does not deny the storm, but neither does it spend the rest of its life trying to remain broken in order to prove that the storm occurred. You are allowed to become someone your past could not imagine. You do not dishonor your suffering by healing. You honor it by allowing it to become wisdom rather than a prison. The ninth way to simplify your life is to choose intention without attachment. There is an important difference between an intention and a demand. A demand says, "This must happen exactly as I imagine," or "I cannot be at peace." An intention says, "This is the quality I choose to bring into life, and I remain open to the form through which it may be expressed." You may intend to create a more loving relationship, but you cannot control how another person responds. You may intend to begin a new chapter, but you cannot predict every turn in the road. You may intend to heal while accepting that healing may unfold more slowly than the mind prefers. When intention is connected to source, it is not forceful. It does not attempt to dominate life. It cooperates with life. Before a difficult conversation, you might set the intention to remain honest and compassionate. Before beginning your day, you might intend to bring peace into every room you enter. During a season of uncertainty, you might intend to remain available to guidance rather than demanding immediate certainty. This changes the question from "how can I control what happens" to "what energy am I bringing to what happens?" Your intention is the atmosphere of your consciousness. When you bring resentment, fear, and desperation into an experience, you see through those energies. When you bring openness, love, and trust, possibilities become visible that fear could not perceive. Source does not need to be forced into your life. It is already present. Your task is to remove the inner resistance that prevents you from recognizing it. The 10th way to simplify your life is to trust what is ending. Endings awaken fear because the ego finds security in what is familiar. Even when a situation no longer nourishes you, part of your mind may prefer known discomfort to an unknown future. You may hold on to a relationship because you fear being alone. You may cling to a role because you do not know who you will be without it. You may continue repeating an old pattern because releasing it would place you in a space without a clear map. Yet all of life moves through cycles of arrival and departure. Leaves fall so that the tree may rest. The tide withdraws before it returns. Darkness arrives not because light has been destroyed, but because another rhythm has begun. Not every ending is a punishment. Some endings are guidance. What is leaving may be creating space for something more aligned with the person you are becoming. You may not see this while standing in the emptiness between chapters. The old has disappeared, and the new has not yet taken form. This space can feel frightening because the ego cannot name it. But emptiness is not always absence. Sometimes it is preparation. You can grieve what has ended without believing your future has ended with it. You can appreciate what was beautiful without demanding that it remain beyond its natural season. You can bless what is leaving and trust that the intelligence that guided you through one chapter will not abandon you at the doorway of the next. Trust is not the certainty that everything will happen as you prefer. Trust is the remembrance that whatever happens cannot separate you from the presence of Source within you. The 11th way to simplify your life is to allow love to replace judgment. Judgment makes the mind crowded. It creates endless arguments about who is right, who is wrong, who should have behaved differently, who deserves compassion, and who does not. The ego divides the world into categories because division strengthens its sense of separation. But every judgment you send toward another person must first move through your own consciousness. This does not mean abandoning discernment. Love is not blindness. You can recognize dishonesty, cruelty, manipulation, or behavior that does not belong in your life. You can set a boundary. You can walk away. You can protect your well-being without filling your inner world with hatred. You can see clearly without closing your heart. Perhaps the person who hurt you was also acting through fear, ignorance, or pain they had never understood. This does not excuse the behavior. It does not make you responsible for healing them. It simply allows you to stop carrying them as an enemy inside your mind. When judgment arises, ask, what would love allow me to see? Sometimes love will reveal another person's humanity. Sometimes love will reveal your own unhealed reaction. And sometimes love will calmly show you that distance is necessary. Love does not always ask you to remain. Sometimes it closes the door quietly, without revenge, and walks away in peace. The 12th way to simplify your life is to return each day to stillness. Stillness is not an escape from life. It is where you remember how to participate in life without losing yourself. Even a few quiet minutes can help you recognize the difference between the voice of fear and the guidance of your deeper awareness. Fear speaks urgently. It imagines the worst. It demands immediate certainty. Inner guidance is often quieter. It may not explain the entire future, but it leaves you with a sense of honesty, spaciousness, or gentle clarity. You might sit near a window before the day becomes busy. You might walk without filling the silence with sound. You might place a hand over your heart and recognize the simple fact that life is moving through you without your effort. For a few moments, release every role. You are not someone's parent, partner, employee, caretaker, problem solver, or source of approval. Before every role, there is presence. Return to that presence. This is the self that existed before the world told you who you needed to become. It does not ask whether you are ahead or behind. It does not measure your worth by your possessions, titles, mistakes, or achievements. It knows you as an expression of the sacred intelligence of life. The more often you return to stillness, the less power the outer world has to define your inner state. Problems may still arise, people may still misunderstand you, plans may still change, but these events no longer occupy the entire landscape of your awareness. You become like the ocean. Waves continue to rise and fall, yet you remember the depth beneath them. These 12 ways are not separate techniques. They are movements toward the same truth. You release comparison because your soul has its own path. You release control because you are supported by an intelligence greater than the mind. You release approval seeking because your worth was never being decided by another person. You release resentment because the past no longer deserves authority over your present. You release judgment because peace cannot grow in a consciousness devoted to conflict. And you return to stillness because stillness reminds you of who you were before fear began telling you who you had to be. Simplicity is not something you achieve once and permanently possess. It is a daily return. There will be mornings when the mind becomes crowded again. You may compare yourself, overthink a conversation, seek approval, or try to control what cannot be controlled. This does not mean you have failed. The moment you notice that you have moved away from your center, awareness has already begun guiding you home. Pause before judging yourself. Take one gentle breath. Ask what belongs to this moment and what has been added by fear. You may discover that reality is much simpler than the story surrounding it. Perhaps there is only one conversation to have, not the 20 conversations you have rehearsed. Perhaps there is only one decision to make, not an entire future to solve. Perhaps there is only one emotion asking to be felt, not a problem that must immediately disappear. Begin your morning with stillness before you give your attention to the demands of the world. Sit quietly. Breathe naturally. Do not demand a message or a sign. Stillness does not always provide answers in words. Sometimes it simply reminds you that you are larger than the question. During the day, notice what you are carrying. When your shoulders tighten, your breathing becomes shallow, or your mind rushes into an imagined future, allow those sensations to become invitations. Return. You do not need to criticize the mind for becoming afraid. Meet it with compassion. Say, I see that you are trying to protect me, but I do not need to follow every fearful thought. This is how awareness becomes freedom. Practice gratitude, not as a denial of pain, but as an acknowledgement that even an imperfect moment contains something sacred. Forgive one small thing. Release one unnecessary obligation. Say one honest no. Offer one sincere yes. Spend one quiet moment without trying to improve it. Think again of the traveler carrying 12 stones beside the river. He believed the stones were necessary. He believed they proved his strength, his loyalty, and his ability to endure. But when he finally placed one stone on the ground, he discovered that the river continued flowing. Nothing terrible happened. When he placed down another, he could breathe more deeply. By the time he released the final stone, he realized that the river had never been asking him to prove how much he could carry. It had only been showing him how to move. Perhaps life is offering you the same invitation. You do not have to see the entire path before taking the next step. A river bends around rocks, passes through narrow places, and continues toward the sea. It does not force its way forward. Its power comes from its willingness to flow. You can live this way, not passively, but openly. Not without wisdom, but without allowing fear to guide every choice. As you release comparison, control, resentment, approval-seeking, judgment, urgency, and attachment, you do not become less involved in life. You become more present for it. You listen more deeply. You love more honestly. You choose more clearly because your choices are no longer crowded by the need to prove your worth. The peace you discover is not fragile. It does not depend on everyone agreeing with you. It does not disappear whenever a plan changes. It does not require the past to be rewritten or the future to be guaranteed. It comes from remembering who you are beneath the roles, wounds, expectations, and stories. You are the awareness that has quietly witnessed every season of your life. You are the space in which fear rises and falls. You are the love that remains when the ego has finished defending its position. You are not trying to become this presence. You are remembering that you have always been this presence. So today, put down one stone. Release one expectation that is taking you away from peace. Forgive one memory that no longer deserves to live in your heart. Stop carrying one burden that belongs to another person's journey. Enter one moment without comparing it to anything else. Let that be enough. And as your life becomes lighter, you may finally recognize that peace was never hiding from you. It was waiting beneath everything you were willing to release. If this reflection spoke to something within you, share in the comments the one burden you are ready to put down today. And subscribe for more quiet spiritual journeys that help you return to the love, wisdom, and peace already living within you.